Good morning and welcome to the second episode of Powered by You. My name is Zino and I'm your host. For today's episode, we'll be talking about the alternatives to higher education and what that currently looks like since the COVID pandemic took place. Today I'm here with Ismael, who's a local member of the community, and we have David, who's a careers advisor for Morley College. Great. So where shall we start with this topic? I think personally we need to ask ourselves, what is the main reason behind people not wanting to go to university in the first place?
Sure. Certainly from what I hear from students, the major stumbling block is the enormous investment that's required. I mean, if someone is studying a 3-year degree, they will be looking at over £9,000 per year, and that is just in fees. So understandably, it can be daunting for some people, especially, I believe, if they've grown up in a family that has maybe struggled with finances. The idea of taking on debt is not attractive, in particular for that cohort of students, from what I've gathered over the years. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. What do you think, Ismael?
I actually have a completely different opinion on the matter. I think that the main reason why a lot of people aren't going to university these days is because it's just not particularly maybe the best path anymore. It used to be it used to be the kind of thing that's what you do. You go to university and then you move on and you get a good job. But these days, I don't think you need it, to be honest with you. It's something where I think that, well, personally from my experience, because my career is I'm a graphic designer. So for me, it's a lot more based on experience and what you know, what you don't know. A lot of the times, if you go on Indeed, LinkedIn, or whatever, a lot of the times, like, it says that, on the requirements for the job role, it says preferred if you could have a degree, but not necessary, or you could have the relevant experience that you would have gotten from there. So it's something where, you could go into the real world, earn money, and have that experience, or go to university and, like David was saying, get that debt, and you don't have any real world experience. So I think it's more about it just not being as necessary as it used to be.
Yeah, I understand. So what was your personal experience? Did you go to uni for graphic design?
I did, yeah. But for me...
Right, okay.
Yeah, do you know what?
Good
I
one.
say it, but do you know what the thing is for me? Is that I went to university late in my life. I'm 27 years old, and I only just graduated about 6 months ago. So, and I did the normal 3 years bachelor degree. And so that means I started when I was 24. Yeah, 24, 25, 26. Yeah, so I graduated when I was 26. And for me, I had a career before that. I was an estate agent. So I was selling houses, and my career path was sales. And, I was a successful salesman. And I was doing well in my career, but I wasn't particularly happy. So I decided that I wanted to, kind of find myself again. I quit, and I thought to myself, when was I last happy? And in school, I always did, art and design and artistic things. And then I started looking at jobs that said you need either the 3 years of experience or the degree. And I thought, I don't have either. And then I started, and do you know what? It was like it was meant to be, because I applied for university, and I think it was on a Wednesday. On the Friday I was accepted, and on the Monday I was in class. So it was like it was just meant to happen for me. And I don't regret it. I enjoyed myself there. But now I have about £55,000 debt. So I'm like, was it worth it in the long run? I don't regret it, but I'm like, it's a lot of debt, and it's there. It's always going to be there. I need to be earning, I checked the last time, I think it was £27,000 a year before you even start repaying that debt. The government won't take that money from you until you earn that much money.
So if you could go back in time, would you still do the same thing?
Do you know what? It's hard to answer, because my experience in university was affected greatly by COVID. Because when I started, it was 2018, September, and COVID started in early 2020, right?
Yeah, correct.
So I had a year and a half, literally 50% of my time in university was your standard, you go into university, you're with your friends and you're studying and everything. Yeah. And the other 50%, I was at home. I was studying from home. The studying from home was terrible. It was horrible. It's like I'm paying $9,000 a year. I don't get the resources that I need. They tried to accommodate you, but you need to be in the university. I don't have access to any of the machines. I don't have access to the library. I think somebody actually went into the library and sent me a picture, and all of the books were gated off. You weren't able to get any books. So I was like, what am I paying $9,500 for? I'm not getting any of the resources I need. I'm not getting the time of my tutors. I think a week I was getting maybe 15 minutes with my tutor, and I'm on my final year. This is the make or break. And I just wasn't getting the attention I needed.
So in other words, you're saying it was money not well spent for the last year.
The last year, definitely not. The first year, I enjoyed myself, and I wouldn't take it back.
Okay, fair enough. So that would open us to the question: what are the alternatives to higher education? Those who are aged, let's say, 18 to 30 years old.
Okay, so I think that is a natural question to ask after hearing what Ismael has had to say. But can I just comment on Ismael's experience before answering or addressing that question? I think ultimately it is a very individual choice as to whether university feels right for a particular individual. But I also feel that given the employment market we are in today, which often requires, as you pointed out yourself there, Ismael, often the ideal is that you have a degree if you're entering into a profession, although experience is expected as well. So if you've got both, it's a magic combination. You are the prime candidate they are looking for. So I don't think it's one or the other. For me, I would suggest that if you have the ability and you have the sufficient commitment to those 3 years, could be 4 years, depending on the course, or whether or not you have a placement in there somewhere, for you to think about this, see this as an investment in yourself. So I think, although debt can be daunting, and for anybody that can be daunting, and I'm delighted to hear Ismael say that he has no regrets, because ultimately he is in a stronger position in terms of his employability now, because he'll have the qualification and some experience to back that qualification up. That is a winning combination. So although it's not for everybody, and as you rightly posed that question, what are the alternatives? Because clearly university isn't for everybody for a number of different reasons, and it's not the same route for everybody into employment and into certain professions. Certain professions, just be aware, do still require a degree. It is not an option to skip that step. If you want to become a doctor, you must have a degree. If you want to become a teacher who teaches within a state school, you must have a degree. It's important to important to please do the research. If you are thinking long term about your career goals, but recognize that you will need a degree in order to achieve those goals, then really I feel that you owe it to yourself to do everything in your power to rise to that challenge. But where you are thinking of a career that doesn't necessitate a degree, the alternatives would be an apprenticeship, and there are now degree apprenticeships as well. So that's an important option, and it's a recent option that the government have brought on board. So you are still going to end up with a qualification, but essentially it will take you longer, but you will be earning a salary in the meantime, and you won't have the sort of debt that Ismael mentioned to contend with. Please be aware, though, that some of those subjects that you may wish to study may not be available at degree level. When you check it out, a lot of those degree options tend to be in subjects such as science subjects, very popular. Economics is another one, and you may want to go down that route.
So you're a careers advisor, and my question to you is, where would you signpost students that don't want to go to university or are still unsure, they're still trying to find out their options? Do you direct them to any specific website, or I don't know how it would work?
Sure. Certainly, if you're looking at the apprenticeship route, then the National Apprenticeship Service is the first place to check out those options. Other websites such as UCAS offer information around apprenticeships as well. So I think National Careers Service is the first stop, and hopefully those links will be available later. At the bottom of this podcast, when
the
it goes
description
out.
link, yes.
Excellent, thank you, Zino. And also, I would suggest that if you have somewhere specifically in mind that you would like to work, such as the BBC or Channel 4, they've got some amazing apprenticeships available, geared specifically to young people who are starting out in the industry. There is a application slot, so you have to keep your eyes peeled for when that becomes available. But anyone who's interested in the media, 100%, now's the time to start looking at that website. You can sign up, register with them, and be the first to get the post when they open up for those opportunities. Yeah.
How would you say the world has changed in terms of careers due to the pandemic, everything moving online? Do you see it as a positive or a negative from your point of view?
Good. Another great question. I would say that in every experience, be it negative at the time, be it positive at the time, hopefully we are learning more about ourselves and how we can respond and adapt to the circumstances. And I feel that comes back to the relationship you have with yourself and developing that relationship. So therefore, the pandemic has been scary, it's been difficult, it's had its serious challenges for many, many families. But in terms of careers, I feel that it has opened up the options for online working, and some students I know have been able to come into college whilst also being able to manage a very, let's say, challenging home life, because they've had the possibility of working online some of the time. So it's got its, like everything else in life, it's got its opportunities for other things to happen.
So would you say it's easier to get a job, or would it be harder because it's online? your destination, let's say your location, doesn't really matter because you'll be at home. As long as you're connected to the internet, you've got a VPN. You could work essentially from
anywhere in the world.
Yeah, so that sounds great. But then again, if you see an application online and you see how many people have applied to that job, you might see pre-pandemic it would be just, let's say 100. We're just saying 100 people. Then during the pandemic, everything has moved online, which opens up the gate for everyone. So you probably see 1,000 applications
for that same position.
Exactly. True. So that would just increase your competition. So I don't, like you said, there's pros and cons, but which outweighs the other?
Sure. That I feel is a more complex question than what it sounds, because if it's the right opportunity for you as an individual, I believe it will happen for you. And I think that's why it's really important to do the work, take control of what you have control of, and essentially make sure you have a great CV. Make sure that you've done your research around the job that you are saying you really want, and make sure that you've used opportunities to deepen your insight into that business or that industry or that arena, so that you are confident that you'll be able to perform well at that interview or assessment, however they decide to take people on. Normally it will be an interview though, and it could be more than one interview as well.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you think you work with students majority of the time across both sites, Chelsea and North Kent?
Yeah. So
do you think, what are the points that young people, young adults need to work on? Like you said, interviews, skills, is that something that is a concern for you, or is it all right? What's your opinion on that? Or even trying to build a CV, you get some people who are that have different skill sets. Is it appropriate for them to have different skills that don't link to that job on that CV? Or would you recommend to have 2 separate CVs or 3 separate CVs according to the job application you're going to put forward?
I would say...
Or even internship in that case.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say whatever the position you're applying for, be it as you quite rightly point out, it could be an internship, it could be for work experience, it could be for an actual job. Whatever the scenario, even if you're applying for university, they still expect you to have an understanding of what you bring to the table. And that's what a CV really provides the employer. A quick view of your essential skills, your qualities and your attributes. And then straight away, they can assess whether or not you're going to, or likely to be a good fit for them. So at all times, I suggest to students, please do the work on yourself by thinking around these 3 areas. What are the skills that I have that I have developed over my period of study in school or college? What are the qualities that come to me naturally that help to make me stand out from the crowd? What's unique about me? And thirdly, are there any other attributes that pertain to the job? But there are some key attributes that every employer or every university or every trainer will be looking for. And that is your ability to work well, both independently and with others. So teamwork is important to develop. And if there's a student here at Morley, I would strongly suggest they take every opportunity to work with their classmates. Yeah.
Okay, that's important to take away. I've got just so many questions going on right now. I'll just start with just saying, for example, Ismael mentioned that he was looking to do graphic design, and he found out the options were either he goes to university, gains a degree, or if he just wants to get employment, he needs work experience.
Yeah.
If someone does not want to go to university and they want to just carry on with just gaining employment in that specific field, how would they gain the experience, because every employer tends to say you would need X amount of experience for us to take you on board. But if you're starting from square one, what would you advise that person or that individual to do?
Brilliant. I would always say, while you're here at the college, or whilst you're maybe thinking about your next step, if you're not currently a student, then always be thinking about... Sorry, I've lost the flow of that question.
That's
what
all right.
was that question?
What was that question? All right.
Sorry,
was
guys,
it a long
we have to
question?
edit that.
No, it's all right. My question was, like Ismael mentioned, he was considering doing graphic design as a career.
Right.
And he was thinking, he was looking through Indeed, LinkedIn, and they mentioned you either have a degree
or the experience.
But if someone does not want to go to university and want to start working in that field, how could they start if the employer is asking for experience?
Great. Okay, so ideally, I would say whether you're on a course or whether you are just thinking about next steps, please look for some work experience. It is a lot easier to gain work experience within a sector that you're interested in if you're willing to work without being paid. So you can expect to work for free, but the experience is what is of value. And that may include working for a voluntary organisation. That may include working with a number of organisations that have traineeships that don't necessarily pay, but they will cover maybe lunch and travel. We have a important voluntary centre here in the community, and I again will be passing those links on. Voluntary positions are also a great way to meet new people. There's so many advantages, and you're making a contribution. So I would always say, get the experience whilst you have the opportunity, because once you are, say, at university, for example, there are times when study, I haven't experienced it myself, can be very intense, and it can be very hard to balance work with study. So just think about making space for it. It may be just during a break, during a summer holiday, during an Easter break, but get the experience. Once you then have something to put on your CV, you can build on that going forward.
What would you say is a good amount of work experience to have? Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? Is it a week? Because a week is just the bare minimum, I think, that they make you do at college to get module sign-off, I believe. But if you're trying to get employment in the real world, what is the recommended duration to have on your CV?
Do you know, for me, when I was looking at jobs, it was saying the relevant experience that you'd need would be the equivalent of if you went to university. So they were looking for the 3 years of experience, 2 to 3 years of experience. But I also had a question I wanted to ask you, David, because you were talking about, when Zino asked you the last question about what would somebody do if they didn't want to go to university. Now, your answer was purely based off someone who is still like 18 years old, still like a student. My experience was, I had already left. I was working.
Sure.
And, I did end up going to university. Like I said, I don't regret it. But what would you have recommended for someone who was in my experience?
In your age bracket?
Yeah, in my age bracket, somebody who, they're already working. They don't have the relevant experience they need, and they want to get a job. They don't want to go back to university because for me, I almost feel like I took a bunch of steps backwards in life.
Yes.
Because, I was earning money. I had, I had the car, I had everything.
Yeah.
And then I gave it all up. And
Sure.
then I just went back to university. Yeah. Now I'm building myself up again.
Sure.
So what would you recommend somebody who is that age group?
Great question. And I think it connects really well with what Zino asked me earlier about the pandemic and the pros and the cons that may have come out of our experiences thus far. And for a lot of people, that has been a time for soul searching and making career changes and thinking, actually, this is not me anymore, or maybe this job wasn't them in the first place. Maybe it was all about making money. So I was really pleased to hear that you made that choice to go with your gut or your heart or both, as opposed to just thinking about the money. And for someone in that bracket, we are in an era where it is unusual for someone to stay in the same job throughout their whole life, in effect. And so being adaptable is super important. And these days, opportunities such as apprenticeships are open to all age groups. It used to be that, and I guess there's still that kind of stereotype around it. It used to be that it was viewed as something only for school leavers. These days, apprenticeships are open for everybody of every age group, as long as you fit the criteria. And I would say that it is well worth stepping back if you need to step back in order to move forward. Sometimes the path is not straight and we do need to be adaptable. And I would just say, go for the apprenticeships if you feel that's the right route for you. Gain the voluntary work in the area you wish to move into. If that is your dream job, you will work and you will sacrifice in order to get to where you need to be. So it's worth the sacrifice of working for nothing, but you're working ultimately for your dream. It may be working without the money, but you're working for a reward. And the reward being self-knowledge and a better fit for you, which is what I'm hearing from you, Ismael.
Yeah, I mean, like I've said it before, many times I'll say it again, I don't regret it. I'm in a much better place, both mentally and physically, than when I was working as an estate agent.
Yeah.
When I was an estate agent, you work long hours, you're running around London all the time. I was gaining weight because, I don't have the time to go to the gym and eat healthy anymore. And, it took its toll on me mentally and physically.
Yeah.
And when I left, I felt like, they say it loads of times, but you don't really understand it until you feel it, but you feel like a huge burden off your shoulders. You feel more free.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel now, and I'm happy for it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Just I want to bring back the point where David was saying you have to follow your heart and your gut instinct. If you're unhappy, change it. You've got to sacrifice. But I think someone would be quite fortunate to have that instinct or that drive towards a goal that they see. But my question is, what if someone is genuinely unsure about what they want or where they want to be in terms of career?
Sure. Then I would be suggesting they book in and come and see me if they can do that. I would also be suggesting that they use some really helpful websites. One being the National Careers Service, where they'll have a skills assessment, and you can start the work that I spoke about, which is to drill down and think, right, what skills have I got to date? What have I worked on that I'm confident in? And where can I develop further? Think about the qualities that you have. Again, what makes you unique? What makes you stand out? And think about other attributes that you have that contribute to this new direction you want to go in. And take every opportunity to develop. If you can't afford it, there's another website called Future Learn, which is offering a number of free courses that anybody can access as long as you've got internet. And that's accessed by professionals as well as people who are just starting out in a certain arena. So I think where there's a will, there's a way. And when I also talk to people about doing the work on themselves, by taking the time out to think, what really sings to my heart, what really speaks to me, what really resonates with the person that I am, the closer you get to that, then the more reward I believe you will get from your next job. Mm-hmm. I think it's really important when people ask me about, should I go for the dream job or go for the money? Dream job every time, because it will be sustainable without you feeling that you're just becoming a workhorse.
That's true. I agree with that. But then we've got to look at different situations and scenarios where you get some people who unfortunately do come from a deprived background, and they think at this moment, I need to survive.
Yeah.
And by doing that, they would go for a course that would pay them a good salary, for example. But that does not necessarily mean they're living a happy lifestyle. What would you say? What's your opinion on that? Because it's either they go follow their dreams and passions, and they're not making enough. They're just trying to survive, really and truly.
Sure. I think typically within the arts, there is the stereotype of the starving artist who will do what they need to survive, but they're loving life. So ultimately,
go on.
Ultimately, I would say the reality is that we all need a roof over our head and we need to pay the bills. So I would suggest to someone, if you're going to take a job that will do that for you, give you some stability and pay those bills, 100%, let's deal with the reality. Do what you need to, but keep an eye on your dreams. Keep an eye on your goals and pursue those in whatever time you have in between, and make it happen. For a lot, especially, and I'll come back to the creatives, because we currently have so many opportunities within the creative world. And interestingly enough, throughout the pandemic, the arts has been seen as a growth area. So I would say to people, so has working freelance, by the way. I would say to people, although there may appear to be more people working, say, as an engineer or in science and there may appear to be more opportunities to get steady work, the arts is becoming increasingly popular because it sings to a lot of people's true natures and their true passions. And I think that's why we're still seeing growth in that area, and we'll continue to see growth in that area, because although we're becoming more technical as a society, machines can't replace creativity. So we need the creatives, we need them on board. And although the road is not always, and this includes you obviously, Ismael, although the road is not always an easy one, it is a rewarding one in many other aspects. And there's a brilliant book called The Artist's Way, which talks about finding your true path in terms of your qualities, your particular path, and being confident in that, and that work you do on yourself in recognizing what you bring to the table. It helps build your confidence going forward. When times get hard, you find the jobs that you can do. We all have other abilities that we can tap into, and and keep moving forward. It's important to feel a sense of progression. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Just to recap quickly, because we're approaching the end.
Sorry, before we say that, can I just say that I have a completely different experience to answer that question that Zino just had about, what if somebody's not sure? Because, for me, I went to university at the normal time. I went when I was 17 or 18 because, I'm born quite late in the year. So if I was born like a week later, I would have been in the academic year below. So I kind of fell into this bracket where when I went to university the first time, I didn't actually need to pay for my first year. I don't know how it worked, but I'm happy it worked out that way.
Sure.
Because I realized that the course that I had chosen wasn't for me. I disliked it. I hated everything about it. And then I dropped out. And then I thought to myself, you know, what do I do now? And I went to the YMCA and they put me into loads of different things to just experience different things. And I think that was probably the best thing that happened to me, because it gave me so much experiences that I kind of thought, okay, I hate that. I like that. That was okay. I might try that. And then I kind of just went from there. And I went from just like thinking about, okay, let me just do something. And I went to work at M&S. From there, I was a carpenter. From there, I became a gardener. And it was something where, you know, I liked it, but I didn't see myself doing it long term. Then it was something where I thought, let me go and learn a trade and something. So I went and became an estate agent. I learned sales, you know, I learned to talk to people. I could talk to anyone about anything for as long as I need to talk to. I can keep going until somebody tells me you need to be quiet now.
Sure.
So I kind of learned that. And then that was when I kind of decided I want to go back and do the thing that made me happy, which was the arts, graphics. And that was my experience with it, because I just got thrown into so many different scenarios, situations, that it made me realize, it clicked in my head, this is what I want to do. And that's where I am now.
Brilliant. But it was those situations that also enabled you to get back in touch with yourself, get back in touch with what are the skills, what are the qualities you have, what are the drivers for you that really make you feel inspired and really have a passion for the direction you're going in. So again, it's not a one thing fits all. I'm suggesting that there's a variety of ways in which we can establish that better relationship with ourselves. This is what I love about careers. Careers is about self-development. It's about knowing yourself well. And you can accomplish that by actually doing, which is get as much work experience as you can. Brilliant. Alongside, study as much as you can. Develop your knowledge base. Make use of your aptitude for new experience and knowledge. Also, make time to reflect. Just doing, we're not just doing beings, we're human beings, where we need to stop as well, and we need to reflect, and we need time to digest our experience, to think, right, how did that feel? How was that? Is there anything I could have done better? How can I improve? And if you're able to do that self-reflection, some people need help and guidance with that, and that's where coming to speak with me may be helpful. That's where going on a website like the National Careers Service may be helpful, because they will ask you questions and you can reflect on those questions. If you're someone who's thinking of uni and you're at that stage, I would also suggest going on to Prospects, which is a graduate website, really targeted at drilling down that little bit further for those people who are thinking, I want to become a professional and join one of the professions. Go on there, it will ask you some in-depth questions as well around, they have a quiz and they'll ask you similar questions but more in-depth. And hopefully you will arrive at a place where you feel confident to make that next step. It may be into voluntary work, it may well be into some sort of work experience, or traineeship, depending on the arena you're looking in.
I'm glad you said that, because, you know, throughout everything you said, I was going to say that kind of, I agree to an extent, but it also comes back to me to something where it's like theory versus practice. I feel like, you know, you can theorize something as much as you want,
Sure.
but then when you actually do it, you might realize that you hate this or you don't have the stomach for it.
Sure.
So I know somebody who was I think she was a chemist or something, and the theory aspect of it, she loved it.
Sure.
But then when she was actually doing it and mixing the chemicals together, she was like, this is so completely different. I dislike it. And she completely left that field.
Yeah.
So she went to university, done it all,
Yeah.
and like it was all kind of for nothing at the end.
Nothing is wasted. It may appear that she wasted her time. However, if she really committed to that experience, I am positive that she will have taken away a set of skills and experiences that otherwise she would not have had, that will be transferable to something else. And it comes back to a question Zino asked earlier about people who find themselves looking for something else outside of what they've been doing. And it comes back to what you mentioned earlier, the change you made in direction. When it comes down to it, we need experience as well as theory. So it's not one or the other. It's not theory versus.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I feel like the thing is, a lot of people focus on the theory, and then especially because do you know what I feel? I feel like the way that I chose to, like my timeline, because I went to university late, I feel like that worked out quite well because I had experienced loads of things before I decided this was the route for me. Whereas, people are like 18 and they go from not knowing what they want to do with their life at all, not knowing anything about the real world, to going and being like, okay, now you need to choose what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
Right.
Great. I think, you know what? I think we're coming towards the end. We can talk about this for days. Unfortunately, we got to call it a day. Any final last points before we wrap it up? Anything you want to say, David?
I would certainly say that whatever road you take, try and use all of your attributes in terms of making that decision. And if you need to change lanes, which clearly a lot of people have decided to do during the pandemic, pre-pandemic, if you decide to change lanes, think about the transferable skills that you have already acquired that may be valuable, super valuable for your next step. And hopefully you'll find a really happy marriage between what you've learned and what you're going to commit to on your next step.
That's a brilliant end point there. There we go. Anything from you, Ismael, or?
I would say before you make any big major decisions, maybe go and explore first. For example, go to if you want to do something in particular, maybe go to a place they do that. For example, graphics, go to somewhere that does graphics and talk to someone. Understand the field before you decide to jump in with everything.
Great. Well, I think it's been a fantastic episode. It's been a productive one as well. Hopefully we'll have many more to come. And in the meantime, that is it for another episode of Powered by You. If you did enjoy it, please comment below the YouTube video, drop a like, and we'll hope to see you next time. Take care.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.